I am Democritus of Abdera, a philosopher born around 460 BCE in a city that thrived on the coast of Thrace, far from the bustling intellectual centers of Athens. Yet, despite my remote origins, I became one of the most influential thinkers of my time, some might even say of all time, largely due to my contributions to the understanding of the cosmos, matter, and the nature of reality itself. My name has been carried forward in history because of my atomic theory, a radical notion that all things are composed of small, indivisible units called atoms. But this, as with much else in my life, took time to develop and be recognized. I grew up in a wealthy family, fortunate enough to afford a formal education. My love for learning, however, could never be satisfied by the teachings of my local tutors alone. In my youth, I was already a wanderer, a seeker of wisdom that could not be confined by the borders of my home city. I left Abdera with my inheritance and traveled far and wide. From Egypt to Persia, from Babylon to India, I sought the knowledge of the world's most ancient and wise cultures, devouring everything from astronomy to mathematics, ethics, and metaphysics. The further I ventured, the more I realized that the truths of the universe were not to be found in sacred texts or grand myths, but rather in the natural world itself. The thirst for knowledge that drove me was insatiable, and I was willing to spend all my resources in pursuit of it. I journeyed as far as I could, seeking to learn from the priests of Egypt, the magi of Persia, and the sages of India. Everywhere I went, I encountered new ways of thinking, new systems of understanding the cosmos, and these diverse perspectives profoundly shaped my own thought. But my greatest discovery did not come from a foreign land. It came from deep within my own mind. When I returned to Abdera after my long journeys, I began to reflect on the nature of existence. I asked myself fundamental questions. What is the nature of the universe? What are we, as human beings, made of? How can we explain the diversity of life and matter that we observe around us? It was then that I formulated the idea that would define my legacy, that everything in the universe is composed of tiny, indivisible particles, which I called atoms. These atoms, I believed, are infinite in number and variety, differing in shape, size, and arrangement. They move through the void, empty space, in an eternal dance, colliding, combining, and separating to form the world we see around us. This idea, which seems so simple and elegant, was revolutionary in its time. I wasn't the first to propose that everything was made up of basic elements. Thales of Miletus had suggested that everything arose from water, while Anaximenes thought air was the fundamental substance. But these theories lacked the precision and universality that I sought. I wanted to explain not just the nature of one element, but the nature of all matter. Inspired by my mentor Leucippus, who first hinted at the existence of indivisible units, I took the concept further. I reasoned that if we kept cutting matter into smaller and smaller pieces, we would eventually reach something so small it could no longer be divided. This was the atom. Atoms, I argued, are eternal and indestructible. They cannot be created or destroyed. They simply rearrange themselves into different forms. Everything in existence, rocks, water, animals, stars, everything is just a different configuration of atoms. The entire universe, I believed, could be understood in terms of the motion and arrangement of these basic particles. This idea, I realized, applied not just to physical matter but to the mind as well. I believed that the soul itself was made up of atoms, particularly smooth, fine ones, and that the movement of these soul atoms was responsible for thought and sensation. Of course, this view was not without its challenges. Many of my contemporaries, especially in Athens, were adherents of a very different understanding of the cosmos. The great philosopher Plato, for example, dismissed my atomic theory outright. He believed in the existence of perfect, eternal forms, which existed independently of the material world. For him, and for many others, the physical world was merely an imperfect reflection of these higher forms. My theory of atoms, of the universe being composed of tiny, constantly moving particles, seemed to them crude and unsatisfactory. but I did not mind their criticisms. I always approached life with a certain lightness, a sense of joy that earned me the nickname, the laughing philosopher. I did not laugh out of contempt for others, but out of a deep appreciation for the absurdity of human nature and the endless complexity of the world around us. While others became lost in lofty metaphysical debates, I found joy in the simple act of observation, of discovering the patterns and rhythms of nature. I believe that by understanding the laws of nature, through reason, observation, and experimentation, we could live in harmony with the universe, free from fear and superstition. My philosophy extended beyond the physical world. I was deeply concerned with ethics, with how people should live their lives. For me, the key to happiness, or eudaimonia, was a life lived in accordance with nature, guided by reason and moderation. I believed that excessive desires and passions were the source of human suffering. To live well, we must seek contentment in simple pleasures, in friendship, and in the pursuit of knowledge. Life, I taught, is like a river of atoms flowing endlessly through the void. We cannot control its course, but we can learn to flow with it, to accept its ebbs and tides with grace. I also explored other realms of science and knowledge, often with startling accuracy. I wrote extensively on the nature of the human body, speculating that diseases were caused by imbalances in the movement of atoms within the body. I studied the stars and planets, reasoning that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but merely one of many celestial bodies moving through space. My work on optics led me to the conclusion that objects are seen because they emit thin films of atoms, which enter our eyes and allow us to perceive them. It is true that much of what I proposed could not be proven during my lifetime. I did not have the tools to demonstrate the existence of atoms or the void through direct observation. But I believed deeply in the power of reason and logical deduction. I trusted that future generations would have the means to test my ideas, and that the truth of atomic theory would one day be revealed. As I reflect on my life now, I am proud not of the fame I achieved. Indeed, my ideas were often overshadowed by those of men like Plato and Aristotle, but of the way I lived. I never ceased in my pursuit of knowledge, never wavered in my belief that the universe is governed by simple, elegant laws. I took joy in understanding the world, and in sharing that joy with others. I know that some of my works have been lost to time, and that much of what I taught has survived only through the writings of others. But I am content with this. I always believed that the truth, once discovered, cannot be destroyed. It may be forgotten or ignored for a time, but it will always resurface. And so it has. Centuries after my death, when scientists began to study the nature of matter in earnest, they rediscovered the atomic theory. Though they have refined it and expanded upon it, the basic idea remains the same: that the universe is made of tiny, indivisible particles moving through empty space. I did not live to see the confirmation of my theories, but I did not need to. I knew in my heart that I had glimpsed a fundamental truth about the nature of reality. And that is enough.